Tiffany's estranged husband, Craig Lazon, was arrested yesterday on animal abuse charges. He has not been charged in her disappearance. Tiffany's daughter, though, thinks the animal abuse charges are related to her mom's cat, who she says is also missing. Today, police wouldn't release any more information, but as you can see right now, the Oregon State Police forensics team is here at Tiffany's home. It's been weeks since anyone's heard from 37-year-old Tiffany Lazon. Her mother, Zoe Sales, says the last text message she got from her was on Christmas Day. Police checked her home last week, and on Monday, Zoe told us what they found added to her concern.
When they showed up, the back door was wide open with all the lights on and no one around. And I knew she was gone.
Yesterday, her estranged husband, Craig Lazon, was arrested for animal neglect and animal abandonment. Tiffany's daughter, Felicity Hallberg, thinks those charges have to do with her mom's cat, who she says is missing as well. Craig appeared in court this morning and pleaded not guilty to both charges. A check of his criminal history shows past cases of domestic violence involving Tiffany. In November of 2018, he was convicted of harassing Tiffany, and up until April of 2019, he was ordered not to have any contact with her. 3 years earlier, Tiffany was also named as the victim in a case where he was facing multiple charges, including rape, attempt to commit murder, kidnapping, assault, and strangulation. The charges in that case, though, were ultimately dismissed, and instead he was convicted of tampering with a witness. He has not been charged in Tiffany's disappearance. When investigators questioned him about it, her family says he told them Tiffany had plans to move to Washington. Her daughter, though, doesn't believe that.
I'm worried. I'm sick to my stomach. And it's just not her. Like, she just wouldn't leave like this. And it's just heartbreaking.
If you have any information about Tiffany's disappearance, you're asked to call the Albany Police Department.